A few hours ago, the first teaser of James Gunn's Superman movie premiered, and today I will go into expert mode to analyze the teaser. I'm excited. Yesterday I had some trouble sleeping. Today I woke up before my alarm went off.
Seriously, I've been working extremely hard all week. Bro, I'm excited.
Today, I'll share my opinions and all the references and details I noticed in this teaser. A decision that seemed out of the ordinary to me is to open the teaser with Superman falling in the snow, about to be defeated like Yamcha. Why? Because culturally we have this idea of Superman as this practically invincible character. Think of a Christopher Reeve type Superman who, while he was on the verge of being defeated several times in his movies, because well, if not, there would be no plot, right? He was so powerful that he could even turn back time and build walls with just a look, no joke. However, many people also complain that they find the character too powerful, making him boring to them. Because they believe the character is invincible, opening with a sequence like this can be a way of telling people, look, our Superman does struggle, it is hard for him, and we hear him breathing heavily and even bleeding. And the question here is, who could do this to Superman? The teaser seems to give us the answer later on. In this scene from the Superman teaser, Clark noticeably stands out from the crowd. Not only because of his height, David Corenswet is 6'4", but because here Clark doesn't seem to fit in entirely with the rest of Metropolis. It's not that he's going in a different direction, he just feels different from the others. He seems more aware of the time, and for some reason also seems to care more than the rest of the people who move automatically through Metropolis. And I really like this decision because the scene does emphasize this otherness of the character. Superman is someone who tries to fit in, but sometimes he doesn't quite succeed. This scene perfectly portrays one of the emotional pillars of the character, in my opinion. The classic Art Deco entrance of the Daily Planet is shown, a popular 1920s architectural style. Lois Lane, with all the attitude of Lois Lane, has no idea how much I love that attitude. And look at the stance Clark Kent takes. He's someone who deliberately slouches to appear shy and hide his secret identity. Something we've also seen in the comics. It should be clarified that this is not always the case. Classic versions like Christopher Reeve's Superman highlight Clark's clumsiness and shyness. Even in the early comics, Lois Lane despised him for this type of personality. Yes, despise is the right word. She mistreated him, but other depictions portray this with more nuance. Because according to some writers, Clark Kent is the real person, and Superman the character, so we don't always see Clark so shy, so clumsy, but this is something important to emphasize because apparently this will be a very classic version of the character. Then we see the Kent farm and Clark with his father Jonathan, who seems to be sad. I'm unsure if this is a flashback. It's like I feel they put David in young guy's clothes to make him look younger. If that's the case, we'll have to see if both Jonathan and Martha Kent are alive during the events of the movie, or if we'll only see them in flashbacks. The story also has different versions. In his first version, Clark was raised in an orphanage. Later on, the Kents became recurring characters in the Superboy stories in Smallville, that is, of a teenage Clark. But it wasn't until 1986 that they were introduced to the central continuity in John Byrne's Man of Steel run. I'd love to see the Kents alive to witness their son become the man of tomorrow and guide him morally. It's an aspect I adore about the character. However, some versions have both dying in Clark's adolescence, while others only have Jonathan's death. Perhaps in this version, Martha passed before Jonathan? Hey, I wanted to let you know that we're putting significant effort into our Instagram content. I'm uploading 3-4 original videos per week that aren't shared here, along with infographics on various subjects. It's challenging for us to expand there, so if you want to access more of my free content and support us greatly, I'll be expecting you. In the coming days, I'll upload an infographic featuring the top Superman comics and various Joker versions. Let's continue then. One of my favorite parts of the Superman teaser was seeing Krypto, who comes to help Clark when he whistles. Let me tell you where it comes from because it's something very classic in the comics. During the Silver Age of comics, superheroes had a more childlike focus. So many, and I really mean many, super pets made their appearance. The most famous of all was Krypto, who first appeared in 1955. It was supposed that he would only make one appearance, but the character turned out to be popular and they left him in the Superman lore. According to the story, Krypto was Baby Kal-El's dog who was sent to Earth before him by Jor-El to test if the ship was working well.
So Superman's dad did a...
Laika to his dog.
That's right. But, isn't it Laika?
Krypto's ship was stranded in space and arrived on Earth when Clark was a teenager. Krypto also acquired powers from the sun and has human-level intelligence, so it makes sense that he helps Clark. So in the end, everything worked out well.
I remember when Grandma cooked your pet duck.
Over the years, Krypto has been seen in different ways, but in general, he is a white dog, and this version is inspired by a pet that James Gunn had. The teaser intensifies after this point. This frame of Superman is my favorite from the entire teaser because it completely represents what Superman is. Someone who protects people at the cost of his own integrity. The hero who stands between Metropolis and danger, from whom he's saving them from a kaiju type we see later on. We also see Lex Luthor stubbornly watching Superman fly, and in a very threatening way. Lex's trait is consistent across versions and not specific to Superman's actions towards him. But Superman's existence alone makes him feel inferior. Luthor Corp, Lex's company, may be involved in this case. Superman makes an epic escape from a trap, but the scene that follows, this scene from the Superman teaser, was very emotional for me. It holds great significance and reference, but truly the ultimate reference. In the scene, we see a boy raising a Superman flag in the middle of a chase in the hope of attracting the attention of the Man of Steel. Later on, a scene tells us that it is a country called Baravia. Two things stand out. First, Superman will care about the world, not just the US, as he will get involved in complex political issues, as it should be. Something we see in more modern comics where Superman has renounced his American citizenship and has sided with protesters and immigrants. The mention of a border likely relates to the topic. Remember, Superman is essentially an illegal immigrant. And the choice of Baravia as a country is very interesting because the first time this fictional country appeared in DC Comics was in a comic from 1939, still written by the very creators of Superman, Jerry Siegel, and Joe Shuster. This was one of the first times in history that Superman got involved in foreign politics in the comics. The second time, if I remember correctly. And here he aims to recover a mysterious deadly gas that is capable of penetrating any type of mask that was smuggled into Baravia for war purposes. Superman retrieves the gas formula and destroys it at the end of the comic. Keep in mind, he didn't give the formula to the US as the scientist who created it intended, deeming it too dangerous for humanity. Which tells us about a hero who thinks about the world and not just his country. Something that I also see reflected in this scene, where he will surely arrive to save the day. Then we see this scene where Superman is rejected by the people and enters Stag Industries, a company that in the comics has ties with Metamorpho, whom we also see a little later. I appreciated the moment when people rejected Superman, as it felt natural for them to be wary of a character who embodies pure goodness. It's not socially acceptable. In several comics like Birthright, Lex Luthor manipulates public opinion and discredits Superman. I feel like this is something we're going to see in the movie. But obviously hope will end up triumphing and Superman will win over the people. The teaser features a superhero team consisting of Guy Gardner, a Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, a Thanagarian warrior, Mr. Terrific, one of the world's smartest men, seen using his protective T-spheres, and Metamorpho, who can transform into various elements. What's the reason behind the numerous superheroes in the latest Superman film? I think there are two reasons. The first is that this group of heroes, who are sponsored by Maxwell Lord, can serve to show us that Superman is different from other superheroes. He may have different ideals, another way of acting, or gets involved in other countries' political issues, while others avoid doing so for corporate reasons. These characters seem to be present for James Gunn to showcase his strengths. Gunn's superhero projects involve lesser-known characters whose personalities he alters from the comics, making them work well together in his productions. This approach succeeds with obscure characters. Because, well, it's not like there are a ton of fans of G.I. Robot, but he can't change Superman's personality too much. So it makes sense that he incorporates these characters that he can change, who might be able to support the movie. Then we have a sad Superman next to a robot, who is probably the caretaker or part of the caretakers of the Fortress of Solitude, which we also see in the teaser. This is also a classic concept in the comics. Sometimes it's a robot named Kalex who served Kal-El's family. Superman sometimes has an army of Superman robots that help him keep his Fortress of Solitude in order. And yes, Clark is emotionally attached to them. So much so that in the All-Star Superman comic, his robots assist him on a suicide mission to defeat the solar computer called Solaris, which according to Grant Morrison is the greatest enemy of the Superman dynasty of all time and looks a lot like what we see in the trailer. But isn't Lex like Superman's greatest enemy? In this comic, the Superman dynasty spans centuries. Lex is portrayed as a specific threat from a certain era, while Solaris killed a descendant of Superman and many other superheroes over millennia. The first image sparked speculation that the figure could be Solaris, the engineer, or even Lex Luthor in his battlesuit. However, it's likely the mysterious character in the black suit battling Superman who possibly sent him crashing to the Arctic ground. This raises the question, who is this black-suited figure fighting Superman? Rumors and a circulating list of McFarlane Toys orders suggest the next figure is Ultraman, an evil alternate version of Superman from Earth 3 with similar powers but different uses for kryptonite. If it is him, they likely won't include the narrative of him being from another Earth in the comics. Kryptonite. The multiverse stories didn't work as expected and seemed too complex for the first DC Universe film. The villain will likely be an evil Superman created by Lex Luthor, the government, or Luthor aiding the government.
Wow, it's trendy for millionaires to help the government, huh?
It's worth noting that James Gunn stated on social media that he personally approves all toys and has not approved any that contain spoilers. So maybe it's not Ultraman. Finally, we have several scenes of Superman and his beautiful romance with Lois Lane, a narrative motif that I love from Superman stories because this love that exists between the two is a very important part of Clark's story. She represents the humanity of the world and he falls in love with her precisely because of this. For me, a complete Superman story has to have Lois Lane and Lex Luthor. So right there. Finally, it should be mentioned that the opening music is an arrangement with electric guitar and is later with orchestra of the classic theme by John Williams, but removing some notes and reharmonizing other sections to make it feel more modern. I will upload a video discussing this topic. Remember to follow me on Instagram. Here are my thoughts. I really enjoyed this teaser and feel it has elements I want to see in a Superman movie. Especially the idea of Superman being involved in global politics. Because this is a very important detail for me personally. I want to see a hero who sees beyond the confines of his upbringing. I dislike that James Gunn said his Superman fights for truth, justice, and the American way of life. Because even the Superman of Superman Lewis fights for truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. But if the story presents him as a global hero, that's fine with me. I also love that it brings back classic elements like Crypto, a more classic version of Kalex, the whole team from the Daily Planet, and the teaser did give me the feeling that it will be an emotional movie with a social message, and that talks about how difficult it can be to represent goodness in an increasingly cynical society. I want the movie to show why Superman is still relevant, and the teaser convinced me. I'll likely comment on Warner's posts, hoping they consider me to interview James Gunn or someone from the Superman production, as Warner Mexico doesn't seem to notice me. I don't think they know I'm a huge Superman fan. If you could help by commenting on relevant posts, I'd really appreciate it, as I want to bring you an awesome interview with James Gunn. Regardless, I'll keep commenting and analyzing everything about this Superman until July, so be sure to follow me. That's all for today. I'm Go, the Geek Monitor, and look up.